on something about this place by that. So, yeah, the question as go along because this is the Bible based presentation. I would say what that might see it very well. Yeah, you can see around this now. We realize the found that we might learn back to that we might learn about this particular bit about this that help with that right speak forward this time. Come back with the Bible helps. We thank you for the prayer. It's just the opportunity those who are here with us and those who may be joining us online. So thanks for today. Now, the topics that people so we're not going to by any means do a depth coverage of what is contained in the Bible. This is just an overview and what's contained and what's telling people maybe how much but you take the Bible an overview of what the Bible itself we much detail. So body considered to be sacred amongst the number of Christianity. So they held sacred amongst Judaism and the other words that collection of life rather than a novel, which is a start in like happen but one way one sections by different places. Because that so it has big different languages. That's the language of a large majority of Israel. That's a lot of the history of the Israelite nation, not today as it's acceptable between an Old Testament and a New Testament. So the dividing point is the life of the known Jesus Christ. So life, the Old Testament and after life, the New Testament, and it takes lots of different styles of life that later. So that's the book that we know as Bible. Sorry about that. See how we go with the tech. So, it's that very old book, completed approximately 2,000 years ago, you could say. However, despite its age, the Bible has been and continues to be the best-selling book of all times. Would you believe that? So, this is from the Guinness Book of Records itself, the official record. It states the best-selling book of all time is the Christian Bible. Impossible to know exactly how many copies have been printed. However, it's suggested by the British and Foreign Bible Society in 2021. The total number is somewhere between 5 and 7 billion copies. So, over its lifetime, there's almost as many copies of the Bible have been printed as there are people in the world today. Go on again. We're just going to have to bear with this, I think. Okay, I'll continue, and if it comes up on the screen, that's a bonus. I think those online are probably getting it. So, the Bible is unique among books, and even those who are not religious or affiliated with the Bible through Christianity would say that the Bible is, from all respects, a unique book. One commentator says, in its effect upon human history and its ability to reach men of all kinds, the Bible has no close competitor. More widely circulated and read than any other book, it is unique in the world. So, the Bible, in terms of its influence, in terms of the number of people that have read it, number of people whose lives it has affected, is unique. There's no other book that has had such an impact on humanity and upon, indeed, as we'll say, the history of the world. So what is it? So it is a book at the end of the day. What is it that makes this book different to any other book that you or I might write, or some specialist in a particular topic, subject may write? Well, this book claims to be the words of the one universal God. And we believe it's not our subject today. We believe that can be demonstrated by evidence that's both within the Bible itself and evidence external to the Bible, be that historical records, archaeological records and things which have been dug up which prove events and facts from the Bible, and predictions known as in the Bible prophecy, predictions made by the Bible which have been proven to come to pass in the course of history. So it is a claim, and we believe a valid claim, to be not just a human authorship, but written or overseen in its writings by God himself. And the God it describes is one universal God who created life upon the earth as we have it today, and created that earth for a purpose. But further than just describing God, this book enables or describes to us God's viewpoint on the world. So if you are able to look down upon the world and survey the events that happen upon it, the people, you would be able to see it through the Bible, through God's eyes as he might perceive it. And so it enables its readers to see the world and life from the perspective of God. And that's a pretty unique thing. It's filled with countless lessons, lessons which are directly described by great teachers like Jesus Christ himself and others that followed him, lessons that are hidden within events and records, lessons that are taught within laws and principles. But throughout the Bible, it is a book of learning. And anyone who has read and studied the Bible for some time can tell you that you can read through sections of the Bible and continually find and learn new lessons from it. But above all that, above the interest factor that you might have in the Bible, it outlines hope, something better, something beyond this current world, this current life that we live in. We'll talk a little more about that later, but that, I think, is probably one of the most unique things about the Bible. So, unique in other ways, as we mentioned, it doesn't have a single human author. So the statement is the Bible was guided in its writing over many years by God himself, who influenced the human beings who wrote it, but in terms of the individual parts and books of the Bible, there were over 40 different authors. They were writing over about 1500 or so years, and they were not all educated people. They varied in their backgrounds from shepherds, fishermen, some were scholars, educated people, others were kings. All types of people were involved in the writing of the source text of the Bible. And in terms of locations, it wasn't just the land of Israel, where the Jews live, but as you can see just on the map there, don't worry too much about the detail about all the books, but if you just glance around, you can see there's a number of places from Rome over in the west, right over to Babylon and Persia in the east, down to the south of Israel, Egypt in the wilderness, where different sections of the Bible were written. In terms of manuscripts and manuscript evidence for the Bible, there is apparently over 24,000 partial and complete Bible manuscripts. That means copies of the Bible earlier than we have today. As we said, it was written thousands of years ago. We of course don't have the very original texts on which it was written. They've perished long ago. But there's no other book which has as much evidence, as many copies of manuscripts from the past as the Bible to prove its accuracy and correctness. It's been a controversial book over time. So, because of its teachings, which are sometimes controversial to the rule of the day and the power and influence that certain leaders and entities, organisations wanted to have over people, the Bible at certain points in history was quite controversial and was banned by authorities from being written in people's native language. So in England, in the 1500s, there were people attempting to translate the Bible from Latin. It was kept in Latin and Greek, which only the clergy, the leaders of the church, could read, and they would just tell the sections to their followers they wanted them to hear. And people wanted to find out the Bible and read it in their own language, in English. So a translator, William Tyndale, had that endeavour, and for his pains, for his efforts, he was executed by the authorities, was burnt at the stake in 1536. So we take it for granted that we can have a book today, a printed copy of the Bible in English that I can hold, you can go down to a bookstore and get. Things were not always that way. The book has some other unique features. It reaches out to all kinds of people, so it's not just a book for educated people, it's not just a book for people of a certain nationality, it's not just the Jews' book, it's not just for English-speaking people. The Bible has been translated into hundreds of different languages, in fact, to travel around the world. It has an honest record. That's something that's unique, because a book that tries to describe certain characters and great people and to convince people of the merit of following them often hides the details of their wrongdoings. The Bible does not do this. It describes some great characters. One of the characters it describes is a man called King David, the second king of Israel. Great leader, influential person, kind and generous person, and yet he had some great wrongdoings that the Bible does not hide at all, but outlines so that we learn from the mistakes that they make. It's an honest record that wants us to learn. We've already mentioned it has a variety of writing types. So within the Bible there's a large section called the Psalms, which are approximately 150 songs, poems you might say. We won't pick up the rhymes and rhythms so much in our own English language, but written in Hebrew, it certainly would have. But many of them we're told were sung to music as either praise to God or a meditation or reflection. It has large sections of prophecy, so predictions for near events and far distant events. It contains history, law within the first 5 books, which was ascribed to the people of Israel to set them up as a nation, to establish them and give them some guide rails for how to live. It contains wisdom writings, has a book called Proverbs with hundreds of little short sayings which are very profound and to the point. It contains apocalypse. That simply means visions or revelations of future things which people had in dreams and visions. And it contains letters. Many letters were written by a man, the Apostle Paul, to communities of believers that he set up in the first century. And we've got those letters and the lessons he conveyed to them on record in this Bible. And it has a great consistency about it. As we said, despite the variety of people writing, the fact that many of them never met each other, never could because they lived on other parts of the earth, or they lived in different times, and yet their message has a consistent theme that's held together, a theme about God as the universal God of all and the purpose that he has with the earth. Now, just to point out, the Bible is not out of date in terms of its wisdom, and I've just put this example up of a book that's highly promoted as having wisdom in today's world, right? So it's one of the top business books of all times. That's what it's touted as, written by a man called Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And people thought this was revolutionary when this book came out. Oh, look at these brilliant ideas and principles, and he's really got some great things about how to live your personal life, how to live in your employment, how to be successful in business and so forth. And yet, all of these principles in the book, which are all good and right, are not actually original at all. They are thousands of years old, and if you drill into them, you can find that the Bible had this wisdom hidden away in it many years before this book was written. And in fact, I think the author took a lot of those ideas from the scripture and simply reworded them. And so it's the 7 habits, so-called, of success here, which are all good things, can be found. For example, I won't go through them all, but be proactive. Proverbs 22 verse 3 tells us, a prudent man or a wise person foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Seek first to understand and then to be understood is another principle partway down. And that's picked up in a few quotes in the Bible. The book of James says, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear. So let's be ready to hear first, slow to speak, and slow to wrath or anger. And then again, Proverbs 18 tells us that he that answereth the matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. So in other words, when we're always too ready to say what we want to say, get our words in first, we're preparing our answer before the other person's finished, that's foolishness. The Bible says we should listen it out, make sure we've fully heard someone and that they feel that they've been understood before we attempt to give our answer. So, my point in putting these up is simply to show that the Bible has a brilliant insight and wisdom, and there's many gems to be sought within it. And as it says within the Bible itself, it has promise and has advice and help for both our present life and gives us a hope for the future. Just to point out too, because there's a perception that the Bible is a bit old and out of date, it's science and modern times have moved on from that. We can get better information from our modern textbooks, philosophies and so on. I just want to point out that the Bible itself, far before it was commonly understood amongst scientists and others, stated things like the earth was round. Back in Isaiah 40, it describes he that sits upon the circle of the earth. Also describes the way in which the planet of the earth is suspended in space, spinning and orbiting around. No one was able to send up a space shuttle back in those days to observe the earth and to see that it is in fact suspended in space and part of a solar system. And yet Job, the earliest writers in the Bible, in Job chapter 26 verse 7 said of God, empty space, he suspends the earth over nothing. The Bible also describes the hydrological says that all the rivers run into the sea. In other words, all the rivers run out, empty to the ocean, the evaporation occurs, carries it up, into clouds and rains upon the mountains and down it goes. That cycle was described in Ecclesiastes by the wise man Solomon. So, because the Bible was written by the man who created the earth, well, not the man, I should say, God who created the earth, of course, the understanding of the science behind it all is there. It's a book which has beneficial advice for, as I said, the main point of the Bible is a future hope, which we'll talk about soon. But even in the present life, the Bible has very sound advice for living. It gives advice on many different topics. Just a couple I put up here: family life, community life, and employment. Take these examples from Ephesians chapter 6, describing the family unit. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honour your father and mother." And then to fathers, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but raise them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord." So in other words, don't just be focusing on the negatives, or the things your children might do wrong, but focus on positive instruction and building them up, teaching them the ways of the Lord, as outlined in the Bible. And the husband-wife relationship: husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. And then to community, it says, well, how shall we interact with the broader community we live within? Not just those who might share our own views or values, but Romans 12 tells us, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Consider what is good before all people. If possible, it says, so far as it depends upon you, live peaceably with all people. So it has wise words for how we engage and interact within the community we live amongst. Our employment, what does the Bible say about that? Well, Colossians, a letter in the New Testament, chapter 3 says, to those who are employees, or servants in those days' terms, obey your earthly masters in every respect, not only when they're watching. So don't be that employee who just works hard when they're seen and slacks off when the boss is not looking. Now, the Bible advises us, be like those who are working with a sincere heart, fearing the Lord. In fact, it says, whatever you're doing, work at it with enthusiasm. So put your best effort into whatever you turn your hand to do, as though you're doing it to the Lord, not for people. So the principle the Bible teaches here is that God can see everything we do. So whether our boss is looking or not, he knows if we're being a diligent employee, if we're being honest and trustworthy in all the things that we put our hand to do. So it says, do everything, do all your work as though you were doing it for God, because he can see. And then you know you'll be doing a good job for your present employer that you work for now. But getting to the more important things, yes, it has guidance for life, but the Bible is not just a self-help book for this life. It's far bigger than that. It's a book of purpose, of a very purpose. And we'll just look at a couple of quotes here. No, we haven't put on the screen. So, 55, verse 11 said, out of my mouth it shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose. It shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it. So God is saying that his word words has gone out with a purpose. Broadcast these words, people could listen to them and say, well, that's nice. When I say something is going to happen, or I outline a plan, it will come about. Because being God, he not only states the future, he makes the future happen. As the Bible describes, he's of nations, the geopolitical scene, the powers and forces of nature, natural disasters or natural events which happen upon the earth, and is in control of these small things that happen in the lives of individuals, which often affect the big things of the world. Getting closer to That's fine, God has a purpose with the earth, but what about us as individuals? The book of Timothy, 2 Timothy 1 verse 9 says this: God saved us and called us to an holy calling, not because of our works, but because of his own purpose and grace. So the Bible talks about calling people, calling them to a hope which God describes. But it calls them to a purpose that God has. He has a purpose with this earth. In fact, it says, the purpose which he gave us in Jesus Christ before the ages began. So right back at the beginning of all things, this writer is saying God had a purpose in mind for the earth and for humanity upon it. That purpose is outlined in the life of Jesus Christ and the way that Jesus lived. We'll talk a little more about the man Jesus Christ in a moment. But one classic statement, one quotation in the Bible which describes God's purpose in a nutshell is in Numbers chapter 14 and verse 21, which says, "But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord." Now, if we were to unpack that in more detail, the Bible describes the glory of God as not just a theoretical thing or a display of power, but the glory of God is who he is as a person. He's a person of love and kindness, of mercy, of fairness. He's a source of goodness. All these things are qualities of God. But what God really wants is to see those qualities in other people, in the people that he has made and put upon the earth. And so to fill the earth with God's glory, as that quotation says, really means to fill it with people. God doesn't just want an empty earth that has nature, oceans, and lands upon it, animals, just to look at. Just like a parent with children, that's the way God looks at the earth which he's created and the people which he's put upon it, as his children. And anyone that's a parent knows you want to raise your children in certain ways. You want to see good qualities, good characteristics come out in your children. And so that's the way God sees the humans which he's created upon the earth. He wants to bring out his good qualities, good behaviours, which he displays himself in his children, and to see that interaction between them, and to see them look to him as their Father in heaven and give him praise. And that is what will give God pleasure and give him glory. But the great thing about it is that being a part of that has benefits for us if we're willing to take a part in that purpose and that plan and to work with God. He will work with us. And so in summary, God has a purpose for the earth and all humanity upon it, to show his glory through the whole world in people who follow and display the character of his Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. The Bible is also, at the top of all the things it is to do, it is here to teach us about who God is and who his Son is. Which is one and the same in the sense that God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to the earth to show us what he is like as a person. So he sent Jesus Christ, the man who lived upon this earth for about 33 years, lived out of giving and sacrifice for others and a cross, but submitted himself to that so that he would save other people. And that man came and taught in order to lead people to God. And so one of the key things this Bible does, in fact, the majority of the New Testament, that second half of the Bible, is focused upon this man, Jesus Christ, and telling us about his life, his words, his teaching. And he had teachings which were, you could say, revolutionary. They were life-changing and unique to the generation he lived in. And they're still unique today to people who don't understand the Bible. Concepts like love your enemies, do good to people who hate you. If someone would sue you and take your tunic, he says, in those days, give them your coat as well. So this concept of not defending yourself or trying to get your way, but giving in order for others' benefits, even doing good to people who don't like you. But Jesus knows the benefits of doing this. And the most important thing is that whether it benefits us or not in this life, it was the right thing to do as taught by God. It is God-like. It is like Jesus did. And so Jesus said this in John chapter 17, verse 3. This is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent. So the key message of the Bible is he says that people should know God and know Jesus Christ, whom he has sent. So the Bible describes, we said before, a hope. Describes a brighter hope for the future. If you do have a Bible, open it up to Isaiah chapter 2, which describes a future time that's coming on the earth when there'll be essentially a new world order. There'll be a central world government established in the land of Israel itself, the historic homeland of the Jews. And there'll be a worldwide religion. In fact, everyone from time to time around the world will come up to a place of worship called the Lord's house in Jerusalem. If you look at Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2, it says there, it shall come to pass in the last days, the mountain of the Lord all nations shall flow unto it. Many people shall go and say, up to the mountain, to the house, so it's describing and it's set up, yes, a central government. So one look like government. There's never been such a thing before. And everyone they'll judge the nation, they'll rebuke them, they shall be yes, the Supreme Court. It describes this idea of people being our fears is that they take what it's things that we the fence and turn them to get the thing like on to the poor. So, and him that hath no helper shall spare the poor and needy and shall save the souls of the needy. So in other words, he'll champion the people that are disadvantaged in this world, to defend them from the riches of power that might oppress them today. And down to verse 16 describes what the earth will be like. There shall be a handful of corn in the earth upon the top of the mountains. The fruit thereof shall take like Lebanon, and they of the city shall flourish like grass of the earth. So he describes the earth being super productive. So only a small amount of corn, a handful, right, to be a great crop. It says even in places like mountains that were hard to grow before. So the earth under Jesus' rule, when this kingdom of God, this new time that's coming on the earth, will be productive and fruitful, and there'll be food enough for everyone. So this is the brighter future painted by the Bible. This is the hope the Bible describes. And the message of the Bible is that if you're willing to explore its message, to come to know God as it describes, to know this man Jesus Christ to me that the way he wants us to live, God is willing to invite us to be a part of that great purpose. So that when this new world order comes, which we believe from the Bible prophecies is very soon, Jesus will come back to this earth, set up this new government, this new arrangement of things, to be a part of that if we're living to doing the message of the Bible today. So we encourage you to join us in becoming Bible explorers. We believe it's very important to individually explore the Bible and develop your own understanding of it. The conviction that you gain by exploring the Bible for yourself is second to none. The Bible is, in fact, designed to be explored. It says in Proverbs 25, verse 2, it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honour of kings is to search out a matter. So God has hidden little gems of information throughout the Bible, as we said, it's a right to learn. Some of them are obvious, and some of them are there for us to get out, explore with you on, and go through, put our diligence to it, and to understand. And so there's a couple of ways we offer to look through that great help you in this. There is a Bible, I should say that Christians have written called Exploring the Bible, which has 26 chapters in it that takes you through some of the key stories of the Bible. We're also able to provide individual tutoring if you like, if you're interested, that can take you through this book on the Bible. Go through any particular Bible topic that interests you. And as we have on today, we have semi-regularly, not every Sunday, but right often we have seminars on various Bible topics held here at our venue on Sunday afternoons, and we invite you to join us for that. So if you'd like to get in contact with us for any of those things, contact us if you're online on any of these mediums on the screen. If that's not on the screen, but hopefully on your screen. We have an email address, school3christelvians@gmail.com. Look us up on the web. School3christelvians.com is our website and our Facebook page. So thank you for joining us today. We hope that sparked an interest in the Bible and the incredible hope that it offers. And we hope you join us in that journey of exploring God's message in the Bible. Thank you.
You may have missed a couple of slides like that. That's where that we open with a bit of prayer. Creator, for these thankful that we have what these things about your word. To think about this book, the Bible. To see how amazing it is, how its message is so consistent with so many authors over so much time. Yet it still has the same themes running through it. It's new with one. Every single word. We thank you that we can read it in our own language. Seek to understand it. That we can spend time to look at the message because we've seen how important it is. We've seen how it gives us hope for the future. So much good. Time is sad. The sorrow and sighing will far away. So we thank you for this time. We pray that we might consider all of these things that we've heard as we ask in prayer through Jesus Christ's name.